abundance is this knowing that your possibilities and opportunities are endless and unrestricted. It doesn't actually matter what's happening around you and what other people are seeing, saying, or feeling. You just know deep inside that there is boundless opportunities and possibilities for you. Welcome to the Manifesting Millions podcast, where we talk about manifestation, money, and practical guidance to creating your dream reality. My name is Amy Van Meel, and I am an experienced coach and transformation guide, obsessed with helping you get out of your own way and create a life that blows your mind each day you wake up. My goal in this podcast is to share practical manifestation, self-awareness, and growth techniques in real talk conversations. So if you're ready to massively transform your reality, your finances, your relationships, and your overall enjoyment of life, you are in the right place. I am absolutely delighted that you're here with me today, babe. Let's get into it. Okay, hello and welcome back to the Manifesting Millions podcast. And for those of you on the private podcast feed, welcome to day one of the 5 energies of money. I'm so excited to bring this series to you. I have 5 very powerful and I honestly believe life-changing episodes written up, ready to go. I'm super excited to bring them to you. We're going to dive right into it. And I'm going to give you just kind of a little heads up of what the heck this is. For those of you who are tuning in to the regular podcast, the Manifesting Millions podcast, you may not be familiar. And those of you who've already said yes and signed up for the private podcast, this is going to be a little bit of a review, but let's just dive into it. So what the heck is this and how can you get access to the private podcast, you might be asking. So I am getting ready to launch the final enrollment period for Building Fempires, which is the transformational money program that I have written and think is pretty amazing. And this is part of the, we'll call it the launch sequence, getting ready for that enrollment period. Now, what I wanted to do was to test a different way of bringing some really valuable information to you. So what I've really been playing in a space of experimentation all year long, trying different things, seeing how they feel, seeing how they land. And this was an idea that flowed through me from my highest self to say, what if we did like a podcast series where the first half of the podcast is shared on our regular podcast feed, and then the rest of it is shared on a private feed. So that's what we're testing out. So what I'm doing is a 5-part series discussing the 5 energies of money. So the energies that this series is going to cover is scarcity, abundance, greed, generosity, accumulation, wealth, disconnection, flow, and constriction, freedom. Now, I know that might sound like 10 energies. You may have also noticed that I had 2 at a time and then a pause. That's because I want us to think of each set as 2 sides to one coin. Now, thinking of scarcity, the flip side of scarcity is abundance. The flip side of disconnection is flow. Each week, the first portion of the episode is going to be shared right here on the Manifesting Millions podcast. And I'll include in this area how we define these energies, how they can show up for us or what they can look like in our life, and what's great or not so great about these energies. The remainder of the episode will cover how we can shift the lower frequency, how we can maintain the higher frequency. So if you've ever been like, how the hell do I maintain abundance? As got you is in the back half. And why we even care about this, including psychology, neuroscience, beliefs behind it, reflection questions, insights. It'll shift a little bit depending on the energy we're talking about, but I'll always give you how do you shift low frequency out? How do you maintain and build higher frequency in? And then like, how can you put some of this insight into action so that you can actually create change in your life? So here's the deal. Like I said, you get the first half of it here on the Manifesting Millions podcast. If you want the back half, which has all of the like action into insight, or insight into action, I suppose is a better way of saying it, you need to register for the private podcast feed. And you can do that by going to amyvanmeel.com/money and the number 5. Of course, I will always have that URL in the show notes for you. This series is completely free and there's no time limit on how long you have to access it. It is going to be on a separate podcast feed. So I know I've said private podcast feed. If you aren't familiar with those yet, it is a completely separate feed that you need to actually like have a special link to access and register for. So that's going to be housed completely different. You won't find the fullness of that here on whatever your regular podcast listening platform is. You need to actually register for it. Now, the last thing I'll say is, I'm reading my notes and also listening to my husband make coffee, is the Building Fempires enrollment, as I mentioned at the beginning, is going to be opening up for the last time this year. And enrollment is going to open on November 4th. So here's the deal. If you have been thinking about it, if you're wanting to shift your relationship with money, if you're trying to like finally figure the fuck out how does money actually work and how do I understand it better? How do I work with it in my life? How do I not feel so friggin' powerless with it all the time? That's what this program is all about. I will, of course, be launching it next year, so you definitely can get into a future enrollment period. But here's why I would definitely encourage you, if you're even thinking about a little bit, to enroll in this round. For one, I'm debating, haven't decided yet, stay tuned, that I might do this as a live round whereby I'll actually like host some live Q&As, which means you would be in the first of getting to like access, excuse me, full on Amy, full on like direct at source kind of Amy, how does this all work? Which is really, really cool. Very exciting. I've gotten a lot of value out of programs that I've enrolled in the past that have a live Q&A component to it. The other thing is I actually find like November and December very, very powerful months of the year. We are often in a space of reflection. Our energy may be sort of winding down. For those of you who don't wait all summer long for ski season to start, you're kind of like, cool, I can chill out. You know, summer was busy. It was go, go, go. It was vacation. It was all the things. But I also find the space of reflection is so fucking powerful. So for myself, every December, I set aside time to like review the year that's coming to a close and set intentions for the year coming up. Now, for more years than I could count, definitely my 20s and 30s, I was like, how can I shift my relationship with money once and for all? And oh my gosh, do I wish that there was a program like Building Fempires available for me like when I was like 25. My life would probably look completely different today than it does now, in a really good way, which is part of why I finally wrote this program because it doesn't exist anywhere else. I was like, I need to get this information out there, and Source kept knocking on my door. Coming back to the timing of this enrollment. So the moment you actually enroll, there's no waiting time. Like you get access to the program right away, which means that you can jump straight into learning and expanding your knowledge. And you'll be, so November 4th, it's 7 weeks. Let me count the calendar here. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. So like basically, because it's 7, the reason I'm counting, there's 7 modules in the program, plus like a whole bunch of bonus modules and stuff. But the 7 core modules, let's say you did 1 module per week at a time, you would finish the core program before Christmas, which means that as you are like in that space of kind of reflecting on your life, which happens to, I think, all of us naturally, whether or not you actually go through an intention setting kind of exercise or activity, it's going to like really set you up to create a massively powerful 2025. Now, all that to say, if you wait, it's not like you're not going to get the transformation. It's just going to be later. So I'm going to leave that to you. All right. With that, let's dive in. So day one of our 5 Energies of Money series is focusing on what I'm titling Energy 1 of Scarcity and Abundance. So we're going to start by defining what scarcity and abundance is. So in my definition, and there's lots of ways we can look at scarcity, but what I see scarcity is a state of lack. It's an experience of not enoughness. It's a feeling that activates the survival mechanism. I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit. It's a physical response that shuts down our logical, rational mind in favor of our sympathetic nervous system response, which is our fight or flight or freeze or fawn. Okay? This is like literally your life is in danger. That's when scarcity kicks in. All right? Scarcity kicks in or life in danger kind of situation. It's an ongoing situation of struggle, frustration, and hope. And I'm going to explain hope a little more in a minute. Okay? So that's how I see scarcity. When I think of abundance, so defining abundance, I see abundance as a state of more than is required. Okay, not more than is needed, more than is required. The words are very important because need like has this kind of constant kind of low vibe, low grade energy behind it, but a requirement is like, well, I'm required to, breathe. That just has to happen, right? Abundance is an experience of steady security. It's a cycling of growth, release, and expansion. In its true experience, abundance is grounded in trust, i.e., trusting everything is always taken care for, no matter what, right? Now, at first, this is important to know about abundance. Abundance is a vulnerable state of being. It's unfamiliar if you've had a lifetime of scarcity, fear, lack, and struggle. And it means that we can be challenged by fear of the abundance running out. But the last thing I want to say about abundance is that it is the natural state of the universe. It's the natural state. It's there. I'm going to dig into scarcity more, but just kind of doubling down into the natural state of the universe that is abundance. If you look at literally anything around you, and it does not matter what time of year, the world is always existing in a state of abundance. I'm not talking about like the energy of people, all right? And like the thoughts of the masses and the shit that the news dumps on us. I'm talking about the natural state of things. Look out your window. I don't care what time of year it is. And if you're paying attention, you'll see that there is always abundance happening. You can't see this because I'm talking into the microphone, but I'm literally like, my arm is outstretched and I'm pointing to the window behind me. So let me give you an example. Seasons like spring and summer are ones that we very clearly and very, very easily associate with the energy of abundance, right? Spring is this like big, massive like growth. Things are coming out. Things are turning green. The leaves are starting to sprout. The flowers are popping out. We see animals all over the place. There's babies being born everywhere. So we kind of look at that and go, oh my God, like that's abundance. And then summer is these beautiful long hours of daylight. It's nice and warm. We tend to have more time shared with friends or family. We're doing things that feel good. We tend to find ourselves more engaging in like things that feel healthy, like exercise or movement, etc. And so it's super easy to see that as a state of abundance. Where we tend to struggle, I think, as a human group of souls, is when we think of things like fall or winter. We see these as like times of constriction and times where things are moving into a state of scarcity or lack. But let me just like put this out to you. Have you ever looked outside on a snowy day and not seen bazillions of snowflakes on the ground? Is that not abundance? Maybe you don't like the snowflakes. That's fine. That's not what's in question right here. There are people who don't like grass. I don't know why, but like people don't like grass. We can look out and look at like all the grass in the yard and go, oh my God, like it's so abundant. But somehow when we look out and we see snowflakes in the ground, we're like, oh my God, it's just like super scarce. There's nothing happening out there. every single snowflake is unique. Let that just sink in for a second. There are no two snowflakes that are identical. That's fucking wild. If that's not abundance, I don't know what is. And then let's talk about fall. Fall, we see again as this time of constriction. Now, it's kind of like it sort of has two sides to it. On the one hand, we see fall as the season of harvest. And that's what I find so fascinating is like, so I live in an agricultural area of the world, and there's lots of conversation about like, well, what kind of harvest is it this year? And it's like, oh, it's just an average harvest. And it's said with this kind of spirit of like, bummer, it's only average. But average is actually pretty good, right? It's not a bumper crop, which is to say that there's like boatloads of it. But what I find fascinating, if you pay attention to how we approach these things, we see an average crop as somehow being less than, not as exciting or whatever. But when we have a year where there's a potential for a really high yield coming out of the crops, there's two things that are happening. There's this sort of state of like frenzied excitement, and there's also this energy of like kind of concern and like actually should maybe anxiety is a better way to explain it of, oh my God, don't let anything go wrong because I really want to get my hands on the abundance that's out there. Okay. So took a little rabbit trail there, but like, so that's, we see that as harvest. But the other thing that we see as harvest, and definitely this is for those of us who may not live in an agricultural area or just are not familiar with like harvest seasons, we see things like plants starting to die, the leaves are falling off the trees, animals are all going through their ritual to prepare for winter. And what, again, like, yes, the sources of food, if they, for example, eat grass, is going to diminish in its accessibility through winter. That does not mean that, like, there's kind of less of it around. It's just harder to access, right? But what if you pay attention and you look at fall? Yes, okay, leaves are falling off the trees. Also, whenever in the year do you see the brilliance of colors that are coming through other than fall? Whenever in the year do you get to like play in the leaves? Do you get to like walk and feel the crunch? Do you really, really enjoy a warm day? Right? Like I love fall for things like the sun is warm, but the air has that sort of clean crispness to it. And there's nothing like that. You don't get that any other time of year. So if we kind of like leverage some of those filters to look at all the different seasons, we can actually see that abundance is the natural state and it is always in existence. I'm not going to dive any further into it because I could talk about this for hours. But I just want to help shift your perspective and maybe open your mind a little bit to go, oh, there's actually abundance all the time because it's the natural state of the universe. All right. So let's talk about how each of these energies can show up, what they could look like, like, are there specific areas of life that they touch? How do they show up in our day to day? Let's break that down. So we'll start with scarcity. Now, scarcity is definitely an energy that you can experience in every area of your life. So finances, health, love, career, relationships, pick anything. It can exist in every single area. How it shows up, though, it can show up in a whole bunch of different ways. So one of those could be like a quiet hesitation caused by fear when making a purchase or an investment. Imagine, for example, that you are about to buy a house or invest in a program, um, and you're looking at the price tag. And even though all the way through you have felt very clearly, yep, this is the right decision, this feels good, it feels aligned. But then there's this moment just as you're about to sign the papers or just as you're about to click the, pay in full or buy the program, whatever, like say yes, babe kind of button, there's this moment of hesitation where suddenly your brain flickers through, oh my God, what if I spend the money on this and things go wrong? What if I spend the money on this and I actually need that for something else, right? That's scarcity brain popping into place. It's that little hesitation that pops up and it's caused by fear that our resources are not enough, right? Another way that scarcity can show up, and this is one that I have experienced over and over and over in myself is pushing yourself to exercise harder or longer than feels good to your body. And that can result in things like feeling nauseous or exhausted or overextended or having a headache or like not really being able to like function properly doing your work later. So that might sound like, well, Amy, that's just like you just went hard. How is that scarcity? So often, and I'll speak specifically for my experience because that's really the only one I'm the true 1000% expert on, is this energy of like pushing myself to go harder, faster, longer, then feels good. That part is really important, okay? Because I'm not talking about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. I'm talking about when you're pushing yourself to your detriment. It no longer feels good, and by that I mean it doesn't have that like, okay, this fucking sucks, or this is hard, or fuck, I'm gonna drop this weight, but I feel good still doing that. I know I'm going to feel good afterwards. I'm talking about energy where, for example, let's say I've noticed this come up most frequently the week right before my period because I know I am about to reach the week where all of my energy is going to just like drop in the toilet. My body is going to be like, can we just like sit our ass down? And that stands in contrast with my goal or my desire for a healthy, fit body, or when I was in my weight release journey, like wanting to release weight. Cause I'm like, well, I can't just like sit around and do nothing all day. Like, how am I going to burn the calories? How am I going to make sure that I'm supporting my body? And so what I've found can happen is because of that energy, this sense of scarcity that's coming up, I'm not going to have energy to exercise, or I'm not going to have time. This also shows up like, let's say, for example, I'm getting ready to go away for a couple of days, like when I went and visited my family out in Manitoba a few weeks ago, well, by the time you're listening to this, it'll be post Thanksgiving, but when I'm recording this, it's pre Thanksgiving. So there's going to be 3 days where I'm going to not be around the house, and very likely in a lot of more sedentary situations where we're visiting and kind of like just eating a lot of things and hanging out with people, right? Which sounds great. But if you flex that in contrast to my desire to feel healthy and fit and strong, then you might see how all of a sudden it's like, oh God, okay, so this is going to happen. And we see this modeled on TV all the time. We're about to go out or we're about to like eat this crazy meal. So I'm going to go push myself super hard to pre-burn off calories before I eat them, which I'm just going to tell you right now, only like kind of works. Um, the probably one of the most depressing parts of going through the weight release journey was realizing actually how few calories we burn in exercise. I'm like, wait a minute, I just ran 5 miles. That's all that I burned? Are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, it's like 3 cookies worth. So anyway, just kind of a fun fact. All right. So that's another way that scarcity can show up in our life. Constant worry that there isn't or won't be enough money to pay bills. This is one that I think most of us are very, very familiar with. It's this low grade, constant sort of thrum that's in our brain or in our energy field that is like, oh God, what if there isn't enough money to pay bills? And I will add to that I can't remember what the number is, but I feel like it's something like 76% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And I use Americans because that's the only statistic that I've seen specifically. So if you think that like 3 out of 4 people, if they miss a paycheck, one paycheck may not have enough to pay their bills upcoming, that constant worry makes sense. But that constant worry is also counterintuitively what's holding us in this situation of always living paycheck to paycheck, right? There's a reason that the Building Empires program talks about money tools, money energy, and money history so that we can start to understand this and shift our thinking and our beliefs in order to break out of this like constant cycle of just barely having enough and this sort of low grade terror that if we miss a paycheck or something goes wrong, we're completely royally fucked, right? Scarcity also can show up in indulging in overeating or eating just because, often in an attempt to fill a void. So I am fascinated by the overlap between my experience of going through weight release and learning about food and the psychology of food and like our habits and all that kind of stuff, and my specific journey with money and like how do we do things with money and why do we feel things and blah 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 blah. So when I think about like overeating, think about overeating as like Thanksgiving's not a great example, but I'm going to use it as an example because it's present of mind. So we sit down with a family or a group to have a meal. All right. And we're only kind of hungry, but we're going to eat all of the things because we're like, but it's here and it's only here going to like be here right now. Or maybe you're sitting down and you don't feel great when you're hanging out with your family because like there's a reason there's all the memes about, having to kind of get drunk to get through family holidays and stuff. And so we overindulge because we're trying to um, like fill this void, this need, cover up this pain of this doesn't feel great, but the food tastes good. And here's the part that's going to sound really fucked, but I promise you this is what's happening. I've been reading a lot about like eating and things like that. If I can't heal the pain that I'm feeling with like, for example, dealing with my family, but I can overeat to a point that I am either like barely conscious because like, like you're in the turkey, the tryptophan sort of effect, or I now feel unwell because I've eaten too much. That's easier to focus on. It's a pain that you know is going to go away once your body starts to process all the stuff you just jammed down your mouth, right? But it's also something that is like very specific to you. You had control over it. It was your actions. You were able to like make an impact in that. It sounds messed up. I totally get it. But this is all stuff that comes out of scarcity energy. Thinking of like continual doubt that your partner or spouse really loves you, expecting at some point they will leave you. Now, I'm not going to, all of these things, I'm just going to pause here real quick. All of these things, and this will be true through the whole series, is that like how things can show up, of course, are going to be tied into beliefs. And we're not talking about beliefs specifically. I break all of that down inside the Building Vampires program, where I teach you about your subconscious mind and how to identify your limiting beliefs and then to shift them. So understanding that continual doubt, definitely there's a belief at play in there, but part of that belief is rooted in an energy of scarcity. If you think there's something missing in you, which is what scarcity is all about, this energy of lack, and you have this sort of low grade expectation that at some point, this person who says they love you and seems to act loving towards you is going to leave you at some point. That's scarcity sort of like filtering your beliefs, right? Feeling excessively competitive in your work, refusing to share knowledge, insight, or work with colleagues who may stand in the way of your desired role. So I want to be very clear, especially for my woman listeners, because that's most of you, but also women and men experiences very, 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 very differently. So, and we're not going to go into all the reasons why. What I want to be clear is I'm not talking about owning your work and taking ownership of like the value that you bring and like standing on your own 2 feet. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is where you feel so competitive that you are unwilling to bring other people in or work with certain people because your fear, this like energy of scarcity, is saying to you, if I do this, I am going to miss out, right? It's kind of like if you imagine a plate of cookies. If there's only 10 cookies on the plate and there's 8 people around, but you really want to have more than one cookie, you might grab 3 cookies, knowing that now actually this is going to leave one person without. But all you can see is, oh my God, there's only 10. And if there's only 10, I want to make sure that I have more because maybe I need that third one. to like barter or something, right? So this excessive competition in your work is coming out of an energy of scarcity. Consistent exhaustion, which could look like always feeling tired, not sleeping well, struggling to accomplish your goals, choosing to be stationary, aka like resting or sitting your ass on the couch instead of moving your body. These can come up out of an energy of scarcity. That might sound kind of weird, but let me just color that in for you a little bit. Um, what I noticed, and this is something that I shifted, gosh, it's been so long I don't even remember anymore, but um, the language of how I vocalize what I'm experiencing changed. So I used to say, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm whatever, but I'm is a contraction of I am, and I am is a declarative statement that tells the universe, more of this, please. This is the being that I am. What I've shifted that to is to say, I feel tired because now it's describing an experience. It's not identifying as an experience. So, why am I telling you this when it comes to consistent exhaustion? Scarcity energy has kind of built into it this idea that there just isn't going to be enough. So when you are feeling really tired, what energy you're coming out of is a sense of, I don't have enough energy. I am in a state of lack in energy. Um, this, now I'm going to just broad stroke scarcity, like, because of course, like we talked a little bit about anxiety and all the things can also impact how you're sleeping, which then just kind of doubles down on having you feel tired and feeling exhausted and all the things. But scarcity has this way of like sucking energy out of us, right? So if you notice that you're constantly exhausted, you're constantly tired, you're like, what the fuck is going on? And you know there's nothing like health wise that's happening. It could be that there's this like sort of kind of base beat of scarcity that's causing this to happen. And final example is feeling triggered when you make a purchase. To make a purchase when presented with a time-bound coupon or a sale. This is especially notable when you don't actually want anything, but you feel a real sense of FOMO if you don't take action. Now, we are, I don't know, we're like 5 or 6 weeks away from Black Friday, Cyber Monday, which is a huge sale period in the North American, but I feel like it's turning global economy. And how many people, right? How many of us, put your hand up if you're like, oh my God, I don't actually need the thing, but it's such a good deal. I should just go buy it. That's an energy of scarcity. I want to clarify that it's different than, say, for example, you need a new TV. All right. You've picked out the new TV. You know which one it is you want. It's like 4 or 5 weeks or whatever away from Black Friday. And you're like, I'm going to purchase it on Black Friday or Cyber Monday because I know I'm going to get a much better deal. And that's just smart use of my financial resources, right? So then you wait, Black Friday, Cyber Monday hits, you get the TV, you get a smoking deal, everybody's happy. You're like, this is amazing. That is not the same thing. I'm talking about you feel this pressure, this driving need in order to purchase something just because. So let me give you an example of how this showed up in my life recently. I have discovered this like Calgary-based designer whose clothes just are 1,000,000,000% my jam. It's just everything that I'm about. Super love it. I like have my inbox has been filling up with a series of different rewards, like in the form of coupons. Some of it's like you bought something, and so you get this amount, and then you gave us a review, so you get this amount, and then you signed up for a newsletter, so you get this amount. So I leave them as like unread in my inbox so that when I actually go in to buy something at some point, I'm like, oh, right, I have all these things. How can I use them? But because they're in my inbox, and there's got to be like, gosh, I think there's like 10 emails in my inbox right now with all these things. Because they're in my inbox, every time I open my email, which is just about every day, I see them. And I noticed sometime last week, as I was clearing through emails, there's a little Virgo-ness in me where I'm like, I just want to clean everything the fuck out. And I'm like, okay, but I still need these here. So as I was clearing through my emails on this particular day, I was down to like, say, 2 other emails that I needed or like videos that I wanted to watch or whatever. And then like this host of emails from this designer. And this need built up in me, this sort of quiet, like, well, I mean, I can only really describe it as a sense of FOMO that I'm like, fuck, if I don't go use these coupon whatever things, then I might lose them. So I went over to the website and I was shopping through, and there was things that were in there. What I've done over time, and I teach this inside Building Vampires, is that I've learned the difference in like, how do I actually make purchases for things that feel good as opposed to just buying shit just to buy shit. Okay. That was a big shift in my life. And I went through that probably about 7 or 8 years ago. It also means I have way less stuff in my house, which is great. It's a positive, like, knock-on effect of that. But I'm I'm going through the website. I'm looking at all the clothes, and yes, there's like stuff that's in there that like is beautiful. There's a particular top that I'm like, I kind of want to try that on because I feel like that could be super fun. But nothing was giving me that like deep body resonating. Fuck yes, I want this. And so after a little bit of time going through, I'm like, what is going on here? What's the thing that's happening behind the scenes that has me scouring through this website with this kind of like driving need to find something? And what I realized was these coupon codes that had stacked up in my inbox, and they probably accounted like came all together to like less than $20, which is still $20 is still $20. I don't want to discount that. But it wasn't like I had like $4,000 of savings on like, if I buy $4,500, I save $4,000. Like it wasn't anything like that. I'm talking like less than $20. But there was this sense of scarcity coming into play going, but like what happens if I lose those? What if suddenly that like $3 credit that I got for leaving that review goes away? Well, what if it goes away? It's fucking $3, right? So that's one of the ways that scarcity can show up. All right, let's shift gears and talk about how abundance can show up in life. Now, admittedly, my list on this one is a little shorter, but we're going to color it in as much as we can. So I mentioned that scarcity can show up in every area of life, just like that. Abundance also applies and can show up in every single area of your life. Okay, there's no part of your existence that is out of touch of the energy of abundance. So think of like abundance, how it can show up as this sense of fullness or fulfillment of being complete. Okay. Knowing that abundance is having more than is required, thinking of like knowing that your possibilities and opportunities are endless and unrestricted, right? If you have this, we can liken it to like an optimistic view, but I think it's simpler than that and more than that all at the same time. It's not just this sense of, oh God, if there isn't, so thinking about like when we talked about being overly competitive in your work, that comes out of this energy of scarcity, like, fuck, there's only so many opportunities available. And you might be saying to me right now, Amy, there is only so many opportunities available. Like, that's just brass, like the hard facts. I don't know what else to tell you. Abundance is knowing that you have infinite possibilities and opportunities. And I'm going to give you a perfect example of this. When I started my job in tech, gosh, I think it's 5 years ago now. I lost track of time. Some amount of time ago. I started at a time they were hiring a ton of frontline staff. And what I noticed within short order of joining my team was that the energy across what I'd say sort of most frontline staff who had been promised, like from the moment they got hired and kind of all along, that there's a ton of opportunity for growth, for promotion, for all these things, was that there wasn't. Okay. Everybody was like for example, there was a ton of people who wanted to get into leadership. So a leadership position would open up and like 400 people would apply because there might only be one or two that happened in a year. So this is sort of the general energy that was happening. Because I don't believe in like this state of scarcity and that there's only so many to go around, I'm like, you don't need to have a billion of them. You just really need to have one that's going to be beautifully aligned for you. That's it. All I'm doing is making sure that I'm ready and aligned for what's going to show up for me. About 6 months, into my working there, all of a sudden there was a massive boom and there was a huge hiring, like internal hiring spree, I guess is the best way to use it, that opened up. There were leadership positions opening all over the place. There were positions happening on teams all across the company. And everybody kind of went a little bit nuts. But there was still the sense of, well, there isn't that many. Oh, there's only so many. Okay, we just opened, I'm making up numbers here. There was just 50 leadership positions that just opened up. But oh my God, there's like 5,000 people who are on this front line and like 80% of them are going to open up. So like there's not even that many. That's what I'm talking about, right? Abundance is this knowing that your possibilities and opportunities are endless and unrestricted. It doesn't actually matter what's happening around you and what other people are seeing, saying, or feeling. You just know deep inside that there is boundless opportunities and possibilities for you. Okay, so another way that abundance shows up and what it could look like is feeling secure in your work. So kind of doubling down on this a little bit, gladly working with even the most challenging colleagues in order to accomplish the work. You're no longer hiding your work from others. You're no longer like seeing it from the scarcity mindset. You're like, look, I know I'm amazing. I feel secure in my work. I feel secure that my work is being seen. And in that spirit and from that energy, I'm going to continue doing great things. And what's kind of cool is that because if you're actually in that energy, your work not only will be seen, but it will actually be seen even more so. And very likely there's going to be opportunities, which if we just covered are like endless and unrestricted. There's going to be opportunities literally just showing up at your door. Okay. People are just going to like knock on your door and be like, hey, you seem pretty awesome. I want to invite you to apply for this, or I want to give you this promotion or whatever. All right. Abundance. Let's talk about it with food, because we talked about it with food related to scarcity. So abundance, how it can show up with food is enjoying food when you eat it. All right. So like it feels really great. You super love it. You're like, yay, this food is delish. But you're easily able to say no thank you to, quote, limited time treats or snacks being presented or offered to you. So let me explain that a little bit. We talked about overeating or eating just because as an energy of scarcity. Now, obviously, we need to nourish ourselves, right? That's like bar none. We got to survive. We got to breathe air. We need to drink water. We need to eat food. Okay? You can't get away without doing any of those things. The difference of coming at it from an abundant energy is, let's say, okay, I'm going to use cakes, for example. Sorry if you're hungry, just a full like disclosure. If you're hungry, we're going to talk about cake for the next couple of minutes. So maybe get like a big drink of water so your stomach isn't totally growling. This week I have been, I almost said building. I suppose it's building in a way. I've been baking 2 cakes for our nieces whose birthdays are coming up very shortly. Each has like requested a specific design. So I've been working my way through. So the cakes are fucking delicious, by the way. I'm just going to say that right now. And they're going to look beautiful when they're done. Today's the last day. I just need to finish like the last decorating. So coming at cake from an energy of abundance. You sit down with your piece of cake. You're not like, you've cut the piece of cake the size that you want it to be. Okay. It's not giant. It's not tiny. It's whatever size you want it to be. It feels good. There's nothing that's restricting on like how much you can or cannot or you're allowed to have, right? You've just cut yourself a piece of cake. You're like, I want some cake. Here's my piece of cake. You sit down to eat it. You enjoy every bite. And when you're done, you're good. You're not going after more because you're like, oh my God, the cake's going to run out. It's like 6 months until the next birthday. When am I going to get one again? You're just happy. You're satisfied. You're delighted. Great. I had cake. It was delicious. That is coming out of an energy of abundance versus, for example, maybe you do only for some reason get birthday cake once or twice a year. And if you're coming at it from a state of scarcity, this energy of scarcity, what happens is that you feel this driving need to have as much as you can because I don't know when I'm going to get it again. Or we're getting ready to head into the holidays. How many of us have specific like holiday season only treats, right? Sugar cookies or my favorite is snowball cookies. Actually, oh my God, I just started to drool like, right, I'm going to make snowball cookies again soon. Anyway, as a side note, I don't know, gingerbread cookies, like ginger snaps, candy canes, whatever the fuck people eat over the holidays. I don't know all the things people eat over the holidays. Our diet doesn't change that much over the holidays compared to any other time of year. So we have this sense of like, these are only available right now. And coming at it from a state of scarcity says, I'm going to eat as much as I possibly can and just stuff my face because, oh my God, it's just so good and I only get it this time. Versus coming at it from an energy of abundance where like, okay, this gingerbread cookie is really fucking delicious and I'm going to have two because like I feel like having two. And then that's it. You're good. You're done. You're like, I've had all that I want to have. I'm great. Even if it doesn't show up, even if I never, ever, ever get to have one of these again and it's absolutely fucking delicious and I might be thinking about this cookie for the rest of my life, I don't feel this driving need to go have more. So abundance is that lovely. It's lovely. I'm not going to lie to you. If you haven't experienced a lot of abundance energy in your life, there's a reason why so many manifestation teachers and personal growth teachers and like religious teachers talk about this state of abundance and why we have this desire to create more of it. Now, as I mentioned in the private podcast feed, I'm going to share how we can maintain it. And yes, I'm also just like clocking the time. It's going to be a longer series and you're welcome because you're going to get some really fucking powerful teaching out of all of this. So let's close off the manifesting millions section of why are my notes not moving? There we are. Of this part, of the goodness gracious, part 1 of our 5 energies of money series by talking about what's great about scarcity and what's not so great about abundance. Yes, you heard me right. We're going to talk about why scarcity can be good and why abundance may not be so much. So, what's great about scarcity? Well, scarcity helps us develop a sense of appreciation for all that exists in our life, right? Love, happiness, a home, car, job, health, etc. We are biologically wired to respond to scarcity. I'm going to unpack that further in the next part. And scarcity can actually work to activate our drive. All right. I'll get into the neuroscience behind that in the private podcast feed. So again, if you're very curious, you're like, oh my God, Amy, don't leave me hanging. I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm just going to tell you to go get over there. And again, you can register for that by going to amyvanmeal.com/money and the number 5. And that URL is in the show notes. So I'm going to leave us there in terms of like what's great about scarcity. But just to understand that there is good things to scarcity. All right. So notice that I haven't at any point in our episode today said that scarcity is bad and abundance is good. There's none of that. They're not good or bad energies. They're just energy. Okay. And each of them has values in and of themselves. So scarcity is something that we think is not great. Well, here's like 3 super simple things that are like, well, actually scarcity can be pretty great. All right. What's not great about abundance is that until we learn to embrace and fully embody it, it can activate our fear center and cause self-sabotage. And if we only ever know abundance, we may not have real empathy for someone who doesn't have things or experiences of abundance or who is struggling. And that can make us seem really out of touch or distant or uncaring. It can feel really out of touch. Like abundance, if you maybe you have or maybe haven't noticed, it's this sort of like amalgamous jelly-like sort of orbing, shifting kind of thing that's a little bit hard to put a pin in and say, this is exactly what abundance is. And because that is true, it can feel really out of touch and it can cause us to act in this perpetual state of striving, but never attaining. Okay. And that's a really shitty place to be. It's one of the reasons why abundance, if we only go after abundance and we don't really understand what we're wanting to create, it can be this like detrimental kind of energy to us. And finally, it's hard to define, which I've just said. It can make it really difficult to know if and when you've attained it, which is not a great thing. We want to know when we've reached it. All right, my Manifesting Millions besties, we're going to leave the episode here. If you want to hear the fullness of the episode, including how we can shift scarcity, how we can maintain abundance, and some of the neuroscience that is related to all of this, you will need to go register and access for the private podcast feed by going to amyvanmeal.com/money and the number 5. You can get access to that anytime. So even though this is launching in October of 2024, if you for some reason happen to be listening to this in like November of 2025, you can still access that private podcast feed. Again, just go to amyvanmeal.com/money and the number 5. And with that, I wish you an amazing rest of the day. Bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you loved what you heard today, be sure to share it with me by leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform and help me reach more like-minded people who are ready to expand their life. If you haven't yet followed me on social media, find me on Instagram for extra love and inspiration by following @AmyVanMeal or visit my website at amyvanmeal.com. I love you so much, babe, and I am damn proud of you. I am already excited to connect in the next episode. And in the meantime, believe in yourself with the confidence of a 5-year-old.